Don't trip, you know? I know things is hard right now. You looking for a job, you out there hustling.
So let's tie this all together. When I originally got involved in this, Russell Poole set up a meeting for me to meet with the lead investigator in the Wallace civil trial. And I was supposed to meet with him at 10 o'clock in the morning, and by 6 o'clock at night, we were still together. We were still talking. And he told me, he said, "You know where this is going to lead?" And I said, "I haven't got a clue." He said, "This is going to lead to the CIA putting drugs out on the streets of America." And I laughed. I thought that was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. And kind of like when Lobo told me that there was corruption in America. And I laughed when Lobo said that, and I said, no, you're mistaken. The corruption stops at the border. And Lobo told me, Lobo said, hey, half the time I spent facilitating drugs getting across into America. He said, who do you think we delivered those drugs to on the other side? And I said, who? And he said, the sheriff. And I said, that can't possibly be true. And he laughed at me. He thought that I was so naive. And so this man tells me, who investigated the Wallace civil trial, he was the lead investigator for the plaintiff in the Wallace civil trial, and he told me that this was going to lead to drugs being put out on the streets of America by the Central Intelligence, or by an element of the Central Intelligence Agency. Well, so let's look at what we have. Clearly we have Compton with 6 police helicopters. Why does a city of 10 square miles need 6 police helicopters? And by the way, where did they get those police helicopters? Those were military surplus police helicopters, and they were facilitated to be given to the Compton Police Department. And Omar Bradley tells us that one of those was sold to Las Vegas for $1 or whatever, a really small equivalent, because it was a payoff to stop them from investigating the Tupac murder. Now, we don't know if that's true, but we did look into it. We did go to Las Vegas to check it out. We went, looked at records, and it looks like that was a helicopter that burned up on the runway, and there was some kind of an insurance fraud. So another rat line, an insurance fraud. Okay, so let's look at what we have. We have the city of Compton with 6 police helicopters. There's a crash that happens with one of those helicopters, and it crashes at the school warehouse, and the mayor goes down to try and see what's going on, and he's barred from going into the warehouse because there's drugs in the warehouse. So clearly, those helicopters were delivering cocaine and other drugs around Los Angeles. How better to deliver than on a military-grade helicopter with the Compton Police Department as escorts? And now we have Reggie Wright Jr., Reggie Wright Sr. arrested in drug smuggling and in money laundering in a case out of Tennessee. They would have never been arrested in Los Angeles. It's impossible. But they got arrested out of Tennessee. Why? Because Tennessee doesn't care about our local politics. And there's all kinds of concessions being granted locally for those guys. Why? Because if the CIA was running drugs out of Compton, those guys would have been central in that operation. And what do we have recently happening? We have, for 17 years, the mayor of Compton has been being pursued with charges. His double jeopardy rights have been violated, and the DA tells him, we just don't want you to run for mayor. And I said it in the previous video, since when does the DA decide who can and can't run for a public office? Who put them in charge of deciding who can and can't run for a public office? You all should be outraged by that. Well, why don't they want Mayor Omar Bradley in office? Because they want the hub city to become the drug hub again. And the people of Compton don't want that. The people of Compton are shaking their heads because they can't believe that Mayor Aja Brown's back in office, because none of them really wanted her in office. They didn't vote for her. So how did that happen? Well, operatives from the SEIU Union descended on Compton at 4 o'clock on election day, and they stuffed the ballot boxes. There was a complaint that was filed in one particular precinct where they counted 93 people that showed up to vote in that precinct. And when they went to count the votes didn't match up. They filed a complaint with the sheriff's office, and that's lodged. And the city clerk already wrote a letter explaining what happened with those votes. And she wasn't very bright about what she wrote, because what she wrote was that she mixed up the ballot boxes. But there is no other ballot box that has 93 votes. So they have a real problem with this election. And why is this election important? The former mayor of Compton, Omar Bradley, said, "I don't want marijuana in our city because here we have Compton that's got red and blue gangs, okay? And now we're gonna have places that have large amounts of cash. It's just an explosive situation. It's gonna lead to a lot of murders. And they don't want the murders in their hub city. They don't want that. Now, if somebody wants to smoke weed legally and they go somewhere outside of Compton to get it, let the drug places be outside of Compton. They don't want a drug hub again, because that led to far too much corruption, that led to far too many killings, and they don't want that crime back in their city. Now, there was a petition that the SEIU started circulating. They're paying $25 a signature, and so they're trying to get 7 marijuana stores put into Compton. And in the fine print, it's not really 7, it's 27. Why does Compton need 27 marijuana stores? Because they want to keep the drugs in Compton and out of other cities. They want to keep it contained. It was a great place to distribute drugs before, and it's going to be a great place to distribute drugs again, but the residents don't want it. A little bit of history for you. Gary Webb is the man who broke the stories about the CIA putting drugs out on the streets of America. There's a book that he wrote that I've read, and it's well footnoted, just like what Russell Poole asked me to do with Chaos Merchants, to footnote every fact. Well, Gary Webb footnotes every fact. And there was a gentleman by the name of Blandone who was bringing the drugs in, and every time there was a case that was made against him, the government would intercede and nothing would happen to Blandone. And it leads to Freeway Ricky Ross, and it leads to Michael Harris, and they had distribution networks set up all over the country. Well, the CIA, when those stories broke in 95, 96, the CIA sent the director of the CIA down to Los Angeles to come explain to the people how it was bullshit. There were no drugs ever put out by the CIA. And it was at a town hall type meeting where they allowed public comment. And there was an officer who stood up, an LAPD officer stood up in that meeting, and he said, "You are lying to the citizens of Los Angeles. I am an LAPD officer, and I have personally witnessed the CIA operatives here in Los Angeles." And he gave salient details about what had happened and about the drugs being put out by the CIA on the streets of America. And as you dig into it, there were two purposes. One purpose was to raise money for things like funding the Contras and doing covert activities. And the other reason that they wanted to put drugs out in the streets of America was to destroy the black family because they were afraid of a race war. And so here we have the CIA putting drugs out in the streets of LA. And if that continued, and nobody wants to stop a funding source from continuing when it's doing well, so we have every reason to believe that it continued. If it did continue, it is highly likely that the Compton Police Department that Mayor Omar Bradley shut down was knee-deep in distributing those drugs. The 6 police helicopters, the helicopter crash that happened, and it's highly likely that Reggie Wright Jr., Reggie Wright Sr. were knee-deep in that. And Reggie Wright Jr. has claimed to many people privately that he would bring the whole house down, that he knows so much about other people and has dirt on so many people that he would bring it all down. And if he was involved at the time, then it's highly likely he was involved in the CIA putting drugs out on the streets of America. And that's why these 2 arrests of Reggie Wright Jr. and Reggie Wright Sr. are big. It's big. What do they know about other people? What do they know about politicians in Los Angeles? What do they know about police officers in Los Angeles? What these guys know is highly likely to get them a good deal, or get them dead, or who knows, or get them really convicted. Multiple counts and not concurrent sentencing, and it's highly likely that this case is going to be a big case. And so I recently had a very dear friend of Michael Ruppert reach out to me, and it's interesting what you learned from people like Michael Ruppert, and I'm hearing this stuff third hand, but it is rather interesting to hear about the rat line that has been running through Los Angeles for quite some time. And this is a rat line that we will see what happens. But it leads to them stopping Omar Bradley from becoming mayor because he would be a good guy and he would stop the drug trade in Compton. And that's why he's being pursued by the DA's office. He's being pursued because he stopped the corruption in Compton. He stopped their rat line. And they want to put that rat line back up because it was good money. And that's why they're going after Omar Bradley. It'll be interesting. He's on trial right now. You guys can go down to the courthouse and support him. He's going to be in court tomorrow. And my understanding is that he's on a witness stand right now. Oh, it's time for everybody to be outraged over all of this. Don't believe the news. Don't believe what you're being told. Don't believe all of the bullshit that's being piled up. Because the reality is that there are rat lines and people with power are making tons of money off of illegal activities, and it all needs to come to the surface. It all needs to be exposed. And if back then Reggie Wright Jr., Reggie Wright Sr. would have been exposed, if Michael Ruppert and Gary Webb would have been taken seriously, both Tupac and Biggie would still be alive.
It's messed up, man, my hands on the wheel, I'm still drunk driving, road rage, got me feeling like I'm out of my mind, I'm on the stage, feeling like crime, but I see these people in this place, gotta speak the real, gotta keep it real, when I rap like this, it give me the chills, I hope you really feel what you really feel, do what you do to make money just to pay your bills, it's messed up, they don't wanna see us going forward, making sure I hold down the last name doors. It's been wild like a wild force, but I bet God got something better for us. We just gotta get the